Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So we've come this far on how to code in C# for beginners, and this is the distance which we have reached. So far, so good. I've taught you basic syntax, variables, functions, and a lot of different things which you can use to make use to understand programming inside of C# or using C# for visuals for Unity, using Visual Studio as your integrated development environment, or Visual Studio as your IDE anyway. So and this is going to be the second to the last video for this series anyway, and I know I haven't covered every single thing regarding programming, to be honest. I haven't touched some of the intermediate level of programming, which hopefully I'm going to be doing in future videos. But for now, these simple things which I've taught so far, you need to learn them, understand them, and even with them, you can make a basic game inside of Unity. You don't really need to stress with all that advanced level of programming unless it becomes necessary, or as you continue to learn and grow and develop yourself, then definitely you're going to need all of those. But for now, everything should be all right with what I've taught. So we're going to look at operators and operands today, and the name, it's not really as difficult as how the name is to pronounce, so it's going to be a really easy tutorial today. We're going to look at the various types and how you can use them inside of your visuals, inside of your IDE to code. So I think that should be everything for the intro. I would see you when we begin the video. Okay, so this is our script for today, and as you can see, it's a class called operators and operands. So let's first of all take away this update. We would not be using it in any way. I don't want anything being checked every frame, so let me delete that. So, and with that gone now, we can start by explaining what operators are. And an operator is simply a symbol that tells the compiler to perform specific mathematical or logical manipulations. Alright, so they are used to perform operations on operands. So basically, these are symbols, alright, that tell the compiler what to do. And I think in this case, I'm going to introduce a few methods, or a few statements. One of the common statements which we're going to be using is this if statement, and this is used mostly to check for a condition. Alright, so you declare it by typing if, and then you put the condition in here, and then if it's true, then you can execute this line of code, or if it's not true, then you can type in else. Alright, so you can type in else and then open curly brackets and also give a condition for this. Now if both of these are equally not true, you can also use else if. Alright, so you can check to see if one condition is true. Let me give an example. Alright, let's say if x here is equal to 1, then we want this line of code to work. Otherwise, if x is equal to, then we want this line of code to work, and then finally we can type in else. So this we can check to see if these two are not true, then we want this to happen. And this is something that you will need a lot while making games inside of Unity, or in general programming entirely. So you will need a lot of if statements. Right, so and we would use this a lot for today's tutorial for these operators and operands. But then what we need to consider right now isn't that we need to consider the types of operators. Alright, but I guess I haven't defined operands yet, so I'm going to do that now. Operands, alright, operands are simply the variables which interact with which interact with each other. Right, so I maybe this wouldn't make sense right now, but then let's start something to show. Let's type in something to show that this actually makes sense. Now, um, let's see. Before we type, let me also state the type of operators which are available. Alright, so these operators which we will talk about have types, and the common types which we would be using would involve the arithmetic operators, comparison operators, logical operators, assignment operators. So these are like the major ones which need to stick to your head, although there are others like the bitwise operators and also the string operators, but then those are rarely used. And then the string is really something simple which I would explain as I show examples inside of this tutorial. So we can now start with number one, and that's our arithmetic operator. And these are the symbols for the arithmetic operator. So you can see there is an addition there, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus or remainder, and then there is the increment and decrement. Alright, so inside of Unity, inside of Visual Studio now, let me give an example of each of them. So let's zoom this to somewhere like, let's zoom this to like 200. Yeah, so we can see things much clearly. And then we can start now by using integer values. So let me say, let me type in an integer and let me call this x, and then we can also define this. So let's say this is equal to 1, and we can have another integer. This would be y, and let's set this equal to, let's say 4. Alright, so finally we should have another integer. This value should be the result. Right, so this is what we would be having. So inside this start method, what we want is for our result to be equal to x plus y, and then to look at this inside of our console, what we need to type in is debug.log, and inside this debug.log, what we want to print out would be our result. Alright, so this would now show inside of the console for Unity. Now we can save this and check inside of Unity. Back inside of Unity now, what we need to do is create an empty game object. Now we can also name these operators. Let's clear the name and let's call these operators. And operands. So with this done, we can now drag our script into this. And since we're not playing any game, what we need to do is pay attention to our console. So I will make this bigger and then hit the play button, and you can see it gives us our answer. So it's going to be 6. Right, so that is what the addition operator does. It added 4 plus 2 and it gave us 6. And same thing goes for the subtraction operator. So if I should put a minus in here, and I would need to change this value to 4 and this one to 2 to get a positive number, a positive integer value. So this is going to give us what, 2 now when we go back inside and test this. Alright, so moving on, the next would be multiplication. Same thing, you use the asterisk symbol for this multiplication, and then this multiplies 4 by 2, which the result is going to be 8. So we can also test this by going back inside of Unity, and we can hit our play button. and there it is. So you can see our result is 8. 4 times 2, which is 8, and that's our result. Right, so the next is going to be division, and for this we use a forward slash for division. So when 4 is divided by 2, the result is going to be 2. So that is what it is. If you want to increase the number, you can increase the value, divide it, and then get something out of it. And then the next is our models, which looks somewhat like a percentage, but instead of getting a percentage, what this does is it gets the remainder. So if 4 divided by 2 has a remainder, it prints out the remainder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these values into a float, because it's not going to work with an integer. It's going to require a whole number. So but with a float, this would work just fine. Now we can put here 5 and then save this and then check unity. Alright, this result also has to be a float, so let's change this also. Let's save this and check unity. So same thing, hit play button, and you can see our remainder is 1, which is what remains after dividing 5 by 2. So that models does work. The next is the increment and decrement value. Alright, now this is same as adding or decreasing a number by 1. So let's take this out by deleting it, and in this case let's also remove this result. That's not what we're going to be printing right now. So in this case, our x is set to 5, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to type in x, and then for the increment it's going to be 2 positive values. So that will be the plus symbol twice, or the plus operator twice. Now what this does is it adds 1 to our x. Alright, so simply this is what it does, and then now we can debug.log our x to see the answer. So pay attention, this is 5, and then the next value after 5 is supposed to be 6, so it's going to increment it by 1. We can save this and go back into Unity. Alright, we can now hit our play button, and you can see my value is now 6, so it increased the value by 1. That is what this increment does simply. And then the decrement does the reverse. So by adding 2 negative operators to the side of the x, it's going to subtract 1 from 5, and this would give you 4. So that's it for the arithmetic operators. Now we can go into the comparison operators. So let's clear this, start, and also this, we're going to declare new variables. So for the comparison operators, we can go back to using our integers now. So I can start now by saying we give space here. Then I can start now by typing in an int. This time around it will be an x like before. Make another integer. Let's call this y. And so yeah, let's leave the two as they are. The first comparison operator is the equal to. Now this is where we're going to be using the if statements quite a lot. So let's start by saying if x is equal to y, then we can print this out. Alright, so in this case we haven't defined x and y, and I can do this now. Let's give this a value of 1, and then this also we can give it a value of 1 because we want to check to see if they are both the same number. So if x is equals to y, then we can debug.log, and for this let's say they are equal. Alright, so this should do. Now we can save this and test it inside of Unity. So we can hit play, and you can see the box, they are equal. So it means that both numbers x and y, both values were equal to each other. So this is what the this equal to comparison operator does. And mind you, if I should take one off, it's not going to work. So anytime you want to compare two different variables, make sure you have two equal to signs, or else it's not going to work. So we're done with that. The next is not equal to. So in this case, we can remove one sign or one symbol and then add not equal to y. And right now we can make y 2 or thereabout. So if x is not equal to y, then we can debug.log. They are not equal. Save this now and test it again. Hit play. You can see it prints out they are not equal. So the computer at least has a memory to do that. Now these are the first two operators. The next is going to be greater than, and you should know this already, hopefully. So if this is greater than y, then we want to debug.log this. In this case, x is 1 and y is 2. Then you know that this would not happen. This would not be printed out because x is greater than y. You can test that out if you think it's just a theory, but it's not going to work. Now, if x is greater than y, then we want to debug.log. Let's say x is bigger. So this is what happens if x is greater than y. We want to debug.log this. But then x is 1 and y is 2, and then it's not going to work. So right now we can use the else if statement. So I can show you what this does now. If x is greater than y, then I want to debug.log x is bigger, and then else if x is equal to y, then we can debug.log. Let's copy this line of code, paste it here. So let's paste this, and let's debug.log x is equal to y, and finally we can use the else, and this would now, let's paste this. For this, if x is not greater than y, it means it's the reverse, so x is less than, or we can log x is smaller. Alright, so now let's go into Unity and test this tree out. Right now our int x is 1 and y is 2, so this would not be correct. X is not greater than y and x is not equal to y. So this should be the one that would get printed out. So we can save this and test it to be certain. So play this. And for our console, you can see it removes x is smaller. So that is what it prints out. So going back inside of Visual Studio now, what we want for testing if the second option actually works, what we can do is set this y is equal to 1. So it becomes the same value as x, and then we can save this and go back to test it again. So let's hit play. And yeah, so you can see it removes x is equal to y, which means it does work. And you can try this final value by setting the x to be greater than y. Maybe give it 2 and above over here to test if this actually works. I can guarantee you that it's going to work. So let's move on. We've already taken care of the less than using this else, but then you can also do the inverse by typing in less than here or fixing the less than operator here and see how it goes. This time around it's going to print x is bigger because or rather it's going to print this is equal to y unless you change the x value to be less than the y, then this would get printed out. I'm actually going to run away from testing that. I'm not going to test it, so make sure you do that to be certain it works. Now moving on, we're going to go into the greater than or the equal to, and this is um, basically what it says. It's two values which it's going to be checking. This is or, so if x is greater than y, it's going to print this value. If x is also equal to y, it's going to print this value, right? So x is bigger. That's the simple thing which it means, and the reverse of it is less than or equal to. Similar it does a similar thing, except this time around it checks to see if it's less than, and then it prints it out, or if it's equal to, and it also prints this out. So that is that for the comparison operators. Let's move on by clearing this and go into the next set of operators, and um, these are the logical operators, right? So let's see. Now for these operators, they are three, and this would be used to check for certain conditions depending on what you want to do. So in this case, the first is the AND operator, and is used by two AND symbols. So what you have to do is you have to check certain variables. So let's say if x is equal to 1, and also if y is equal to 1, then we want this to be printed out. Alright, so you can edit this to say something like they are both 1. Okay, so this is what it does. This AND checks to see if both conditions are true. So if x is true and y is not true, this is not going to take place. If the opposite happens, y is true and x is not true, this is not going to take place. So that is the simple thing which the AND does, and it's going to be very, very useful, especially when you start to go far during your programming or go far learning programming. So that's what the AND does. The next is the OR, and you can do the same thing. So check if x is equals to 1, and then the OR is represented by two straight lines. So this is the OR, x is less than y. You get? So right now it's going to check if this value is true, it's going to happen. So it's going to debug.log, they are both 1. If x is less than y, it's also going to take place. It wouldn't mind if one is wrong and the other is true. So that is what this logical operator does. And the last one is the NOT. So we can see something like x is not, and this is what the NOT is represented by, this exclamation mark. So we can try to see if this is not equal to 1, and then print this out. They are both 1. So that's what it does simply, and that will be it for the logical operators. Make sure you test this out also. The next is going to be our assignment operators. So our final set of operators now is going to be the assignment operator. This is the operators which used to assign various variables or to currently existing one. The first one is the equal to, and it is what it says. So you can basically assign x to y or something like that. So right now, let's say if y were something like, or there is already a difference rather, so 2 and 1. Right now, has been declared as 2, but when we print this out, our x is going to be equal to y, and if we debug .log the x, it's going to give us 1. So that is what it does. That's for the first one. The second is the plus equal to, and so this we can say plus equal to y. Alright, so this plus equals to is the same thing as saying x is equal to x plus y. Alright, so these and these are the same thing basically. X plus equal y. So right now it's going to be x, which is given as 2, plus y, which is 1. And the answer, we can debug it and it's going to give us 3. So that's what it is. The third is going to be the minus equal to, so it can be similar. This would be minus equal to y. It's the same thing as saying x is equal to x minus y. Alright, so these two are the same thing. Can space this. So these two are the same thing. The next is the times equal to, which does the same thing. So we can copy this line and put it down here, and we can change this into an asterisk, and yeah, so the two of them would mean the same thing. You multiply these two together to be x is equals to x times y, so that will be it. Same thing down here for the division. We can divide this, so this will be divided, this will be x divided by y, which x is 2, y is 1, which is going to give us 1, so that'll be it. And the final one is the modulus. So let's paste this one more time, and this we can give it this symbol. It's going to be the same thing. So if there is a remainder, it will give us a remainder. If there is none, it won't show us anything. So these are the basic assignment operators. Alright, so let's go over this again. X is 2, y is 1. The first is equal to, so it's the assignment. You just basically tell x that it's going to be equal to y. So from 2 it's going to change to 1 right now. For the second one is plus equal to y. So that will be x plus y, which will give us 3. This would be x minus y, which will give us 1. Multiplied by, this will be 2. And then this would give us 1, x divided by y. And for these, the remainder will be 0. So there is going to be no remainder. Now this sums up everything for operators and operands. Of course, don't forget that we talked about the if statement and the else if, as well as the else. So that will come in really handy when you start to write a bunch of code. That's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, give me a like. Subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more of my content, make sure you subscribe. Thank you for watching, and hope I see you in the final video.